Good morning, bedroom eyes.
Thank you for staying with us this hour on One America News.
You're
I'm
welcome.
Stephanie Myers. Congressman Devin Nunes says voter anxiety about the direction of the country has produced a record surge in GOP fundraising. One America's John Hines has more from Capitol Hill.
Supposedly a record financial haul for the NRCC. I know you guys are here doing at the meeting of the NRCC today. Record haul in terms of fundraising for Republicans. Do you think this is related in any way, sir, to the sinking poll numbers of the incumbent president?
Well, I think people all over this country are really ticked off, and that's what's happening here. They're showing up at events, they're giving money to Republicans. That's why we have a record number of candidates also, because they see the country basically slipping beneath their feet. The country's completely falling apart, both internationally and domestically. I think that's why you see this surge of candidates and money and people out campaigning, between forced vaccinations.
That's good news.
And the Afghanistan debacle, what China's doing overseas. There's a lot of reasons to be worried, not to mention the bloated spending blowout that they're doing at a time with record inflation, and we can't even bring ships into the port. I'm going to keep going. I can keep giving you more examples.
I know you've been hosting the Devin Nunes Freedom Festival around various parts of the country. What sort of reception are you seeing now in relation to a lot of these events that are happening with regard to the administration, politically, internationally, domestically?
Well, the main thing that I'm trying to do on the Freedom Tour is bring attention not only to the propaganda media, but also the tech companies that continue to censor us. So we're getting really good turnouts in theaters around the country. But what I'm doing is I'm running it on Rumble so that people understand there's a YouTube alternative, and we're getting thousands of people that will watch that. Sometimes even OAN will carry parts of our Freedom Tour, and other news agencies will too, some of the more conservative outlets. So I'm excited. We still have a long way to go because I see people engaged, people are showing up at these types of events, and the whole goal here is to be able to communicate across some type of platforms where where Americans and conservatives can hear from us what we're really saying, not what the fake news jokers are saying.
And where and when is your next Freedom Tour event?
We're probably going to be in South Dakota, but we're still working on it here in the next month or two.
Thank you, sir. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, man.
Yes.
An anti-establishment congressional candidate for Washington state is running on an America First platform. One America's Chanel Rion has more from Washington.
Joe Biden's poll-sinking policies have given the GOP a turbocharged platform to storm the midterms. But in the mix are also a breed of America First Republicans determined to oust anti-Trump rhinos in unexpected places. 20-year combat vet Green Beret Joe Kent is one such Republican, endorsed by Trump, America First, and not the establishment choice. The Democrat effort against the America First movement, it is strong, it is consistent, and you have a handful of moderate Republicans consistently joining the Democrats and trying to take down the America First movement.
She should be pregnant.
How successful is this battle between the progressive left, the moderate Republicans, in taking down the America First movement?
But I think that the left is pushing as hard as they can, of course, to label us all as racist, insurrectionists. And then you have the GOP that wants to go about business as usual, as if this is the mid-2000s or the mid-90s, and they can just talk about tax cuts and not address any difficult issues. But I think the American people, the base of the America First movement, they've really seen through that, especially 10 months into the Biden administration.
You are an America First candidate in the Pacific Northwest. This is not a region that is associated with Trump at all.
Unfortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, our major cities, Seattle, Olympia, Portland, they get a lot of the news coverage, obviously, because they're basically failed cities that have fallen to Antifa and the far left. However, if you get 5, 10, 15 minutes out of any of those cities, you are basically in the heartland of America. And we've been directly affected by what I would say is the failings of the establishment. Everything from hollowing out our timber industry to over-regulating our natural resources industries, all the way to the way that the far left has weaponized Antifa, weaponized BLM to really sow chaos in the region. We have been greatly affected by those issues. So if you get a little bit outside the cities and you come into my district, the 3rd Congressional District, Southwest Washington, we're about 20 minutes just to the north of Portland, you really find that you are very much in America First Trump country.
So what kind of pressure have you been receiving from establishment types, from consultants, to distance yourself from Trump? I'm sure there has been pressure.
There has been. So I'm honored to have President Trump's endorsement.
Trump Central.
I'm unapologetically America First. That's the first thing I say to people is that I'm an America First Republican. But there still is a huge effort within the GOP to make Trumpism a thing of the past. They want to try and sell it like it was just this flash in the pan. And now that Trump has been taken away from the national scene, then we really shouldn't talk about President Trump anymore. So there's a lot of pressure coming from the GOP, especially those that are continuing to support my opponent, Jamie Rivera Butler.
America First is not a political trend for Kent. In 2019, Kent's wife Shannon was killed in action fighting ISIS in Syria. To Kent, the fight against the establishment is a personal one.
I want people to remember that when President Trump came into office, he had a mandate from the American people to get us out of the endless wars. He tried to do just that, and he was thwarted every single way by the permanent ruling class, the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, unelected bureaucrats, the Pentagon, and the intelligence community. Fought him every step of the way. That's why I'm in this race, really. I mean, my wife was killed fighting ISIS in Syria a month after Trump tried to get us out of Syria the first time. Then Mattis resigned, and a bunch of other unelected bureaucrats committed slow roll to keep our troops there. The same thing is really taking place in Afghanistan.
Kent has further made establishment enemies in his support for election integrity. Kent believes the data proving election fraud is clear. It just needs a legal venue.
Every time it goes to a court, they find a reason not to fully adjudicate this and not to even hear the case. I think we just have to be unapologetic and just continue to fight. We have, all we're trying to do is present evidence and present data. All they're doing is throwing rhetoric back at us. They're throwing accusations at us of being insurrectionists. All we are trying to do is figure out exactly what happened in 2020 and make sure it never happens again and make it right. Because if Joe Biden didn't get 270 electoral votes, then we are in a 12th Amendment situation. We need to decertify, and we need to go through that as a nation and actually learn what happened. This is how history is made. We have a crisis, we figure out what happened, and then we strengthen our republic. I spent most of my life fighting in places that didn't have this great constitution that we have, but it can all go down the toilet in a heartbeat if we don't fight for our elections.
Joe Kent, you're a rare voice. People can find you at Joe Kent for Congress.
Yes, Joe Kent for Congress.
Very good. Joe Kent, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Good luck on this race.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan defends Biden's unlikely foreign policy goals. Here's more.
Top Biden administration officials are still holding out hope that Joe Biden can pick up the pieces of his foreign policy platform. On Tuesday, Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan previewed Biden's upcoming meetings with world leaders, highlighting Biden will be discussing America's supply chain crisis and rising costs of consumer products. Sullivan claims while China and Russia will not be attending the multilateral G20 or